Shalom. Let us discuss about circumcision in the law. Romans chapter 2, verses 25 to 29. Let us read the text. For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision dost transgress the law? For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of man, but of God. Now let us examine the text one at a time. For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. It is very clear in this statement that Paul gives importance to the circumcision provided that that person keeps the law. So both are important. But though he's fighting that circumcision is not a salvation issue, but what he's saying here that it is profitable if and only if a person keeps the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Paul is saying here that the violators of the law, the breakers of the law, their circumcision is of no significance. As a matter of fact, they are like those uncircumcised pagans. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? Paul is arguing here from the perspective that there are former Gentiles who are uncircumcised, yet they keep the righteousness of the law. Who are these people? These are people who are called God-fearers in the newer covenant. Or in the Hebraic or Jewish perspective, they are called Ger Toshav. Who are the Ger Toshav? These are the righteous from the nations. Righteousness is based on the law. That is what is in the scriptures. So these are the people who follow the law from the nations, but they are not circumcised. So they are called God-fearers. They recognize the God of Israel and they keep his commandments. But they do not subject themselves to circumcision. And this is what Paul is saying. You don't need to be circumcised to be saved. You have to recognize the God of Israel, his Messiah, and you have to keep his law, but not necessarily to be circumcised. Because the moment a person is circumcised during the time, even now, if they are circumcised in accordance to the Jewish practice that is called by the letter of the law, which is the law of the Jews, not the law of God, they are now called converts or proselytes. Now they are Jews. The God-fearers are not Jews. They are former Gentiles who believe in the God of Israel and keep his commandments. But they fall short of the circumcision. Yet they are saved. So in the Torah, in Exodus, we have examples of these people. These are those who came with the Israelites out of Egypt going to the land of Canaan. And there are the mixed multitude mentioned in Exodus. These people are not Jews, they are not circumcised, and yet they are part of Israel, and they are saved as well. They are saved from the bondage of Egypt. But they did not have any death, for if they do have somebody who died in their family because of the angel of death, then it's impossible or not practical for them to be with the Israelites. But how come they were able to get away or able to preserve their firstborn son from being killed by the angel of death? It only means that they also have the blood in their door, in the doors or doorposts. For most likely, they asked their neighbors, the Jews, "What are you doing? Why are you putting the blood?" They said, "Because the angel of death is going to pass by and they will kill the firstborn son." So they have the blood, but they did not have the circumcision. They also did not partake the Passover, and yet they were saved. So these are the Ger Toshav. They are friends of Israel, and they were saved with the Israel. Now, and shall not the uncircumcision which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision dost transgress the law? The letter mentioned here is, this is how the Jews will be, or a convert will be circumcised. First, he has to believe in the God of Israel, of course, keep his commandments, keep the commandments of the Torah, learn everything about it. And once they are ready, they're going to appear themselves, they're going to present themselves to the rabbi or to the Pharisees of the time or to the rabbis of this time, and they will be tested. And once they agreed and they passed all these tests, they will now be given a letter after the circumcision indicating that they are now a full convert or they are now a Jew. But what Paul is saying here is, if those who are circumcised and yet they do not keep the law, while those who are not circumcised and yet keeping the law, will they not judge those who are not circumcised yet keep the law, and judge those who are circumcised but do not keep the law? This is what Paul is saying. For he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. Paul was saying that even if you are circumcised physically, you are not a Jew if you don't keep his commandments, if you don't keep the Torah. But he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of man, but of God. Now, let us examine this carefully. But he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart. So it's two things. There's a word "and." A Jew is the one inwardly, meaning circumcised inwardly. That is, the inwardly here does not refer to the heart yet, because there is a portion for the heart. The one inwardly, meaning inward of your clothing, which is the circumcision, the actual circumcision of the flesh. And then there is also a circumcision of the heart in the spirit, but not in the letter. Not because they were approved by the rabbis or the Pharisees. There's a letter of certification that this person is already circumcised, is now a full convert. This is not the case. As we can remember in Acts chapter 16, Paul circumcised Timothy, but he was already a brother. So why did he do that, if circumcision is of no importance? But what he's saying here, because Timothy is a half Jew, and he keeps the commandments of the Lord, he believes in the Messiah, and he was circumcised. But he was circumcised in the flesh and in the heart, not in the letter, whose praise is not of man but of God. So I hope and pray that this small discussion about the Torah, about the Brit Kadashah, will make us understand the importance of the circumcision and the law as stated in Romans chapter 2, verse 25 to 29. Shalom.